Those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Running Point, Tuesday edition Running Point on ysnlive.com. Brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartell. And man, we always mess up this nameplate here because I am not Ty, and that is not it. Here, I'll fix it. Ty. You just gotta, or you can do that. Whoa, now we're all jumping all over each other. I was just gonna drag the windows. Welcome to Running Point once again. Sorry for that little suave to open the show, but today we have a good show. We have Michael Pace, the head coach of Garfield Baseball, coming on at 1 o'clock to talk a little bit of the G-Men and how they've been doing this season. Struggling like everyone else to try to get games in. Last night, Ty, it got wet in a hurry. I set up for Fitz Boardman, and literally the first pitch came, and here comes the rain. Like I got like the intro of the broadcast in, and then I had to, run everything into that garage below the press box. The game got about a half inning in. Sidney Watts went a 1-2-3 inning, and then I think before the first Fitch batter was even out, Nick Blanche, who was the umpire there, said, let's give it a minute. They waited, and then they ended up canceling the game, and baseball too. So it rained a lot last night. So I guess today, even though there's no rain, thing you got to watch out for, Ty, is field conditions and how many fields are going to be playable. We'll definitely keep a look at games and updates and schedule updates as the show goes on. But the good news is, according to Storm Tracker 21, our good friends are over at 21 WFMJ and their wonderful meteorology team. The rest of the week does not look rainy at all. No rain the rest of the week until next Monday. So it's going to be a little bit chilly, but at least it's going to be dry.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we look for, honestly, just to be able to get the games in. Like, that's literally all we're looking to do anymore, just to have some games. And we had Coach Gruber on from Cheney Baseball the other day, and he was just talking about how he only had a couple of games, and I don't know if they were able to get anything in for Cheney. I don't think so, though. So, I mean, there's teams that are battling just to get some games under their belt ahead of the tournament that's just a couple of weeks away. And, I mean, you brought up the prospect the other day, or yesterday, I should say, and, I mean, I think we could start having serious discussions, and you got to wonder, is OHSAA going to be thinking about potentially just postponing the tournament a couple days at the very least for some of these Northeast teams that have no games in right now, just so they can potentially get a couple of more regular season games in?
It's supposed to start Saturday, May 7th for softball, and then the next week for baseball. What if they just gave them that Saturday and said, okay, because Saturdays are a day where you can play a doubleheader. You don't have to fight the lights because you don't have to wait till the school ends. Give them that Saturday, get like 2 games in if the weather, so that's if the weather on that particular Saturday is good. You never know. But then you have to wonder, like, if this weather holds up, OHSA tournament games are going to be like delayed. And if it's not statewide, all of a sudden one part of the state is going to be way ahead and sitting there waiting for their regional or their state tournament matchup. And everyone else in the state's going to be like, well,
it's going to definitely pose an issue, you would think, and hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully the weather starts warming up and we can start getting a little bit drier of weather in. But like you said, it's going to make this tournament particularly interesting because aside from the handful of teams that have been able to get a full slate of games in because of the facilities that they play in, it's going to be kind of a wild card, and whoever kind of catches heat now in the tournament. But I think it brings all the more interesting factor to this year's tournament, because if you go into it, we've already seen what the pitching is going to look like. We have great pitching in this area. Hitting's the name of the game. Which hitting's going to be the most consistent going into this tournament? And what we know too with the sport of baseball and softball, all it takes is really like 1 week where a team just has a hot swing in their bat. They start swinging the crap out of the ball, and they start putting the ball in the gaps. They start putting it over the wall, and they start driving in runs like it's nobody's business. That case could happen in this in any one of the 4 divisions that we see in baseball too. We have great pitchers all over the place too. You see your Columbianas, you see your Salems, you see your Fitches, your Canfields, your JFKs. I mean, South Ranges obviously too. Ursulines, all these great pitching staffs. They all have the potential to make that state run, because all it really takes is fire to catch in their bats too. And if the fire catches in their bats, they have a little bit of a hot streak going into this tournament. All it takes is really one good streak of timely hitting, and you could put yourself or find yourself in a state Final Four.
Ty, we did get a couple of results yesterday, and we'll start with East Liverpool baseball. They got the win over Weirton, the Weirton Riders, and 11-5 was the final score of that game. Evan Tice had a great game for the Potters. You look at his final stats at the plate. He went 3 for 5 with 4 RBI and 3 runs scored. So he had a great day. Potters win 11-5 over Weirton, and they have a game against Martins Ferry tonight at 5 o'clock on the road against Martins Ferry.
That'll be interesting too. Another one of those games we see for our Buckeye 8 teams too.
Tice is another player that, like, we've talked about a couple players yesterday that were under the radar, that were putting together really good seasons, but maybe because their team isn't 10-0, they're not getting talked about as much. I think Evan Tice is one of those players for East Liverpool that's really swinging a hot bat, really a tough player to pitch to. 4 RBIs yesterday. I think I could be wrong. I think he leads the team in RBI. I'm going to look at the game changer stats, but if I remember correctly, he leads the team. He's just a great bat in that East Liverpool lineup. That was their 5th win of the season. They've gotten games, more games than most in. I think they're at 11 games now, 5 and 6, according to Game Changer. So Evan Tice, you got to keep an eye on him. Got to keep an eye on that kid and that bat in the Potters lineup.
Yeah, and a big dog candidate this last week too. So no doubt that we here at YSN have been trying to recognize and acknowledge the Potters baseball team and some of the talent that we're seeing kind of holstered over there. So congratulations to Evan Tice too on continuing to have a very successful baseball season.
I think it gets watered down because it happens a little bit more often, but 4 RBIs in a game is pretty impressive. That means you're doing something and hitting with runners on at a very high percentage. So yes, it happens a little bit more often than maybe you see at the higher levels in high school, but that doesn't make it any less impressive. When you come up with a scoring opportunity and you get a timely hit, that's one of the more impressive things you can do in baseball and softball, because that's a high pressure situation. The pitcher already has the advantage, because even if you're a good hitter, you're getting out 70% of the time. So, the fact that you're able to come up with the big hits when your team needs them, that's got to be, something that is promoted.
No doubt. And if you look at this too, I mean, when we see the amount of pitchers that we have in this area too, I mean, 4 runs is pretty much all you really need sometimes too to win a ball game. Because I mean, with the pitching, most of the pitchers in this area aren't allowing more than 3. Some of these aces, so you could spot them 4 runs yourself, literally as the entire offense. You could probably win a lot of ball games doing that. So 4 RBIs definitely as a good accomplishment in any baseball or softball in a game.
Beaver Local softball got the win last night over Buckeye Local, so they get the win over the other BL. And it was a good day for the Beavers. They won by the final score. I hit the wrong one. Excuse me. Oh, yeah, never mind. They fell behind 2-0, and then they won 9-7. At the plate, Ella Neff had a good day, and so did Lexi Schneider. They both doubled and singled, so for multiple hits. You'll look at in the circle, it was Olivia Keller added 2 doubles, and the winning pitcher was Victoria Droschel. So good day for East Beaver Local. They will play East Palestine tonight in their next game. So Beaver Local had a good day for the softball. Their baseball team dropped one to Oak Glen. Those were the finals that came in yesterday. So you can find all those recaps on our website at ysnlive.com and more.
Yeah, as another day of inclement weather has postponed or canceled a lot more games too, but a lot of dancing that we saw in the rain as well yesterday that we
Did
carried
you
on.
see Fitch?
Yeah,
They were playing tic-tac-toe with Boardman. They would put whatever their move was on a softball, and then they would throw it across the diamond to the next team, and they would pick it up. They would put their move and then throw it. That was really cool.
yeah, we saw that. I think I saw Jackson Milton too having a little
They had
dance.
a little dance off. Yep. Anything you got to do to keep rain delays light. Some games got some scores in before the rain delayed their game. Some interesting scores, Ty. Hubbard was leading South Range after one inning of play 3-1 in Hubbard on the softball diamond. That was an interesting score. We'll see how that game kind of finishes out. Obviously, a lot of softball left to be played in that game. You saw Columbiana take a 4.
Game.
What?
They're resuming that game at that score.
I would Hubbard
I
would
don't,
hope so.
I think Hubbard is not gonna. I mean, you would feel like the Hubbard Eagles are sitting there like, you bet you're resuming the game at that score. Ain't no way in hell we're taking that down to 0-0 again. Give us our 2-run lead.
Now tonight at South Range, they will start 0-0, which will technically be the second game in their series. But when they make up that game at Hubbard, I'm assuming they'll start at the top of the second with a 3-1 Hubbard lead.
That'll be interesting too.
Columbiana
that's just looming over the NE8 right now too. As like there's a game where South Range has to play that they're down in right now. That they're down by 2 runs in right now.
Columbiana jumped out in front of United before the rain hit in Columbiana. They were up 4-0 before their delay hit. So Columbiana with a pretty sizable lead and tie. A lot of discussions from Clipper Country about why Columbiana is not in those power rankings that came out on our social media platforms last night. And, you look at Columbiana's losses. They've lost to Howland, Oak Glen. They lost to Lakeview, and I think one more.
Down in Pigeon Forge. They lost to one game. They lost one game, I think, down in Pigeon Forge.
No, they were undefeated in Pigeon Forge. I think.
Were they undefeated in
They
Pigeon
lost to Mentor, Lakeview. Mentor, Lakeview, Howland, and Oak Glen are their losses. And to be devil's advocate, for Columbiana's country and try to kind of see both sides of the story, yeah, that's impressive. When you're winning the games you're supposed to be winning, and your losses, yeah, they have 4 of them, but they're to pretty high-quality teams. Columbiana's in there saying, hey, toot-toot,
Yeah, I mean, Columbiana probably has a gripe, too, that they saw United at ranked number 10, too. In the softball realm too. We have to bring up the power rankings, of course. We will have to bring them up. Those are posted on our social medias. There you go. Bam. Lucas Cummings from Mohawk threw a no-hitter last night. What do you know? Another no-hitter that happens under YSN banners too. We've had a lot of them against Freedom and then drove home. Also drove in runners in a 15-0 win. Smell big dog candidacy. I mean, that might be the first Mohawk one too. And he'll be the only one in the entire state of Pennsylvania that's represented on the big dogs.
PA big dog.
Yeah,
Keystone State big dog. It's a good thing that they were taking it to Freedom, because I turned on that game while I was waiting out the rain in Fitch, and it was like 11-0 already. And, you could tell the weather was coming. Like the skies were getting darker. You could hear that wind blowing in DJ's mic. And I was like, uh-oh, here comes the rain. You better wrap this one up quick. But a 15-0 quick victory will do that when you throw a no-hitter and the other team doesn't even have a chance to put runners on base.
Yeah, that's finishing quick and efficiently. Did Mohawk. And
it's like Cummings was like, hey, you know what? The rain's coming. And let's get in, get out, and call it a day.
Big win for Mohawk too. As I don't know if you've seen the power rankings, but I believe some team from the state of Pennsylvania also made their power ranking debut.
I think they did.
Yeah, we should have those too. I think I have them both loaded in for us too. We have to talk about them as we do each and every week too. Did we have any other scores you wanted to get to? And I didn't know if did you say that was the last score you had, or did you have another one?
Mohawk got the win, and then Beaver Local baseball lost to Oak Glen. Beaver Local softball beat Buckeye Local, and that was it. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think we had a whole lot of games.
East Liverpool
Yeah.
beat Weirton. That's the one I
Yep.
was missing. East Liverpool beat Weirton by a
Well,
final score of 11-7.
we look at this then, and I mean, this sparks debate. We've had these drop on our socials last night too, and you talked about big dogs too. I believe that's going to be dropping. The new big dogs are going to be dropping tonight too, so stay tuned to that.
And another piece of content went up on our sites this morning too, and you mentioned it yesterday with Nick Plant breaking a 40-year-old record in track. But a more in detailed story is on Ysn Live about Mr. Plant, and we've been following him for the last 2 years, ever since we signed Canfield on Ysn. He is a miraculous track and field runner, and you talked about it yesterday. But the full detailed story is now up on ysnlive.com. So make sure to go check that out.
Yeah, and don't worry, folks. We are currently in talks with both coaches for Nick Plant and for Sophia Yan of Lowville. We're going to be trying to get them on to Running Point, get them a little bit of FaceTime. I mean, when you both of them broke 40-year-old
records.
Yeah, so when you both shatter 40-year-old records in boys and girls, you're going to get some FaceTime too. So don't worry, folks. When we get a confirmation on the exact day, but we are working diligently to get them on the show.
Absolutely. Diligently, as always, to bring as many guests as possible on Running Point. Today we have Coach Pays of Garfield Baseball, but we're always trying to get as many players and coaches on as possible on Running Point. We always keep it local. That's our rule.
Yeah, we try to. We try to. And speaking of local and speaking of the girls' side of things, the softball power rankings are in. They're fresh off the oven, too, from last night, too. And we're serving them up hot right here for you, as we saw. And, I mean, in this, as I popped it off, as we looked in this voting, too, some new faces, some teams moving up and down, but it looks like really that top five, pretty much just a little bit of shuffling, but it stayed pretty much what we thought it would.
You know, I said this yesterday when we were kind of trying to find, trying to talk about who was going to be where. I think the biggest, the hardest teams to kind of figure out right now, not figure out, but figure out where they land, are 2, 3, and 4, and where you kind of weigh all those teams and the wins they've had. They've all had kind of a couple of losses against some pretty good teams. So how you rank 2, 3, 4, and how you decide what team's better, what team's worse, and you really got to kind of dive into the small details a little bit when you're ranking those teams.
I mean, for this upcoming week, it almost is exact. This list is almost exact for me, with like 2 exceptions, and one being that I just flipped South Range and Ursuline at 3 and 4. But other than that, this list holds pretty true. And I actually think I put Howland in on this list, and I dropped Boardman off, but Boardman's still making the list too. And that's fair too. That's more than fair. I think Boardman is probably in my top 15 as well. But everyone else, with the exception of that 9 spot and 3 and 4 being swapped, this is pretty much what I think I was looking at for my power rankings list going into this week, my personal one and my vote.
I kept Boardman in at 10, I believe. It was really hard for me to look at their roster and say that they weren't a top 10 softball team, even though they had a really tough outing in Myrtle Beach. It was really hard to look at players like Maddie Lester, Jenna Alexa, and Tori Strines, who's putting together a great freshman season. Maddie Weimer is a catcher. It's hard to look at all those players and say they weren't a top 10 team. So I kind of it was a courtesy keeping them at 10. They were definitely wavering. But I think, with that, United getting in, now all of a sudden you look at that score that we got, the half score we got from Columbiana last night, and you think the Clippers saw that power ranking go up before the game, although I don't think it went up before the game. But it was almost like they knew that United was going to get in before them, and they wanted to make a statement that they were still top dogs in the EOAC.
Now the wins are in the sails for Columbiana, and that's going to be interesting. But we look at this and talking about 2 through 4, and the team that we're putting right there as the team that we think can dethrone Fitch. I don't know about you, Ant, but I think all four of the other teams in this top 5 in that 2 spot until they lost at some point last week. Like South Range was there until the loss to Lakeview. West Branch was there. They lost to Marlington. Ursuline was there. They lost. Champion was there until they lost to Brookfield. Like I was constantly moving them around in my head, and then it eventually just stuck with this. And I think I put West Branch at 2 as well. In your opinion, though, Ant, do you think West Branch, as of right now, is the team most likely or has the best chance at dethroning Fitch at number 1?
When I look at schedules and schedules ahead and some of the teams that these teams have yet to play, I still think I think 3 and 4 have a better chance at dethroning Fitch just because of the high caliber wins that are still left on the table for their schedule. I'm not saying West Branch doesn't, because West Branch was starting to play Ursuline last night. They got delayed, so they still have Ursuline on their schedule. They still have Marlington again. They still have good teams. But South Range still has to play Poland again. They still have to play Hubbard twice. They still have a tournament this weekend down in LaGrange with great teams down there in LaGrange. So they're still going to be playing high quality teams in South Range, and Ursuline always plays a very tough schedule. They have plenty of tough teams left on their slate that are high caliber wins. So when I look at that, and it's like, okay, if all those 3 teams, West Branch, South Range, and Ursuline, right now all ran the table, would they all stay where they're at? And I don't know if they would. I don't know if West Branch stays ahead of South Range and Ursuline if all 3, well, obviously they can't all 3 run the table because West Branch is playing Ursuline. But outside of that game, if they all 3 run the table, it'll be hard for me to say still West Branch deserves to be ahead of Ursuline in the South Range.
Let me ask you this question, and the same question I want to extend to the fans in the comment section. Let us know what you think too in the comment section on the side. Is there a path for any of these teams to the number 1 ranking without a Fitch loss? And if so, what do you think it is? What are some key victories that these teams need to check off to get to that number 1 spot without a Fitch loss?
Ooh. I would say it would have to take something like not a Fitch loss, but a Fitch like oh no win.
Like they look like they're beatable. Then they
right.
kind of look.
And then it would also take that. Plus, I think one of those teams would have to really beat up on a good opponent, like handedly beat up on a really good team. If West Branch restarts this game with Ursuline and beats them 11-0 like handedly.
Ooh.
Then you might start to think, well, okay, that's a pretty, and then all of a sudden Fitch wins like 6-7 or 6-5 on a walk-off, sacrifice, something like that, where they're scared by Boardman, but they don't lose. Then that might be enough to flip, but it would still have to be something like that, where a team, South Rangers and West Branch, decisively beats a really good team, and then Fitch wavers against they're not any bad teams on their schedule. Waivers against a team that you would probably think on paper they should beat.
Being the NE8 guy that you are, Ann, and I mean you follow the NE8 really closely with just calling a lot of South Range and Poland games. I'm curious to ask you too. What do you think about Poland not making this list this week too? And we know Katie McDonald threw the no-hitter and everything. Poland's been looking solid, but
it's tough. I mean, their loss this week was the walk-off to South Range, and that knocked them out of the power rankings. And they're going to be looking at this saying, from Poland's perspective, they're going to be looking at this saying, wait a minute, Boardman lost a lot of games in Myrtle Beach, and we lost to South Range in a walk-off, and we're out and they're still in. And they're probably not going to be too happy about that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all the more reason. I would still venture to say that Poland's probably in that top 15 still. I think Campfield's still.
But then, I would chirp back at that and say Boardman beat you, right? Boardman beat Poland.
Fair. And saying that too, and I'll extend that comment section to the comment section as well. We talked about Columbiana being an outside team looking in. What are some of your teams that are on the outside looking in for this power ranking on the softball side?
I still think Brookfield's win over Champion is good enough to get them in the top 15 and on the bubble. I know they went and they lost the next game to Crestview in a pretty good game, but I think Brookfield's on the bubble after that win over Champion. By the way, I'm really impressed that Champion didn't move a nudge after losing to Brookfield. I thought that Crestview would flip them, but it didn't happen.
I think Champion's win over Crestview, I think, what was it, the night or 2 nights prior, is what kept Champion ahead of Crestview.
Yeah, it's where you kind of juggle it. It's like champion beat Crestview beat Brookfield
Yeah.
beat champion. Which one do you put more weight on?
When you look at this too,
Wild.
I mean, you talk about Brookfield, you talk about Columbiana being on the bubble. I mean, I look at the AAC team just because I'm looking at it, and I guess I'll extend the question to you. If you're going Howland or Canfield as a team in the AAC, which one are you looking at?
Right
ahead?
now, Howland is streaking. Like Howland is 8-3 right now. They're winning games. They're on a big win streak. They're starting to put it together. And like I said I want to see Canfield come off this big break. Their first game since I believe the 14th is tonight. They're coming off a 12-day break that wasn't all weather. They weren't scheduled to play for 2 weeks. So I'm itching to see how Canfield comes off of that big break in their schedule.
Final question before we move on to the baseball one. And out of all these teams that are on this list, who do you think has the biggest week ahead of them as far as moving up or down in the power rankings is concerned?
Ooh, that's I'd have to go and dive into every team's schedule to really make that an intelligent answer.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. Well, I mean, just off of opinion too, and what games we know coming up on this week. We know there's some big games, conference games coming up as
I
well.
think they all have big game. I mean, because West Branch is playing Ursuline right now, like not right now, but they're in the middle of a game that's going to get replayed on Wednesday. By the way, that game they got 2 innings in, around 2 innings, and they're gonna finish up with a five inning game on Wednesday. So they're not gonna play a full 7-inning game, according to sources
What's
in
the
West
score
Branch.
in that one again?
It was. Let me look. I got
What
an
was it
update
suspended
from.
at?
Got an update from my source in West Branch on the score before they delayed it. It was tied at 1 in the middle of the second when the rain came. So they're going to go into the
no one
bottom
has
of
a
the
big
second
lead.
inning at West Branch, tied at 1.
Basically, 0-0. Let's just call it what it
Right.
is. I mean, aside from stats' sake, it's 0-0. You got to play what, 3 innings?
And you got 3 innings.
You got
3.5 technically. 3.5 technically.
3.5 innings. Who's home team? Who's got the half inning?
West Branch.
So West Branch gets one more chance to bat. That's going to be huge.
Right.
And I mean, what do you put into that weight-wise for a game? Do you consider it impressive if Ursuline comes in with only 3 innings and beats West Branch? But I mean, then again, it goes back to that point you were making the other day, and about 5-inning games. And
look, Ursuline won the 7-inning game between the two teams, right? So if West Branch doesn't win it decisively, how much weight do you put on them winning in 5 innings, right? That's
exactly.
It's cold, but it's the reality of things. If they won, let's say West Branch wins 4-3 on Wednesday in 5, but Ursuline won by 4, I believe, in 7 innings a couple of weeks ago at McCoon Park. So I would put more weight on Ursuline's win. Now, if West Branch takes those 3 innings and just dominates and wins something like 11-1, and it would have been a run rule anyway, then I'll say, okay, West Branch, you've earned the respect of that win. But if they win, like if they scrape by in 5 innings, then you kind of go, well, Ursuline should have had 2 more innings, and when they did have 2 more innings, they beat you. I don't know how much weight you put on that win for West Branch, but we'll see how that plays out tomorrow night. I guess the one thing though on this, it was really hard for me to decide where to put Lakeview, because obviously they had the big win over South Range, and then the next day they went and the South Range dominated them. So it's like, which one do you put more weight on? And I was kind of like, it was a really big win to beat South Range in South Range. And then, obviously South Range woke up a little bit and flexed on you the next game. It was hard for me to decide how to put them. I think they earned the spot ahead of Hubbard with that win, though, because Hubbard's one game against a big team so far, and right now they're up 3-1 on South Range, but their one final against a Big 88 team is a loss to Poland. So I think it was fair to keep them ahead of Hubbard, but it was a hard decision.
Lakeview's in that situation too, where it's like they were their win. I think they were just having a little bit of trouble coming back down to being even again after it. I think they were riding the high of it a little bit too high into that South Range game, and they paid the price for it. Young team though, they're going to be able to figure it out. I do want to mention though with Hubbard doing it the old-fashioned and classic way, hard work with grit and grind. They were 10 2 weeks ago. They were 9 last week. They're 8 this week. Slowly climbing this ladder. Slowly but surely, Hubbard looking to make a name for themselves. I think they're climbing more than one rung, though, if they beat South Range.
I think when you look at South Range's history, and they've been going to Myrtle Beach for a long time. This isn't like something they did for the first year. The first week back from Myrtle Beach usually is kind of shaky for the Raiders. They either lose to a team that they should beat, or they kind of struggle against teams. I feel like they come off of this trip to Myrtle Beach, and the first week back, it takes them a minute to kind of get their bearings. And they came back. Their first game was Poland. It was a competitive game. They walked off in the bottom of the 7th. And then they came off of that win, which probably got them really high in the head, because this was a Poland team that beat them twice last year and really took away their chance to win the NE8 outright. So they beat Poland. They're thinking, okay. And last year, Poland was the only NE8 team that gave them any kind of problems. So they were probably a little bit, like you said, Lakeview wasn't struggled with getting even after the win over South Range. I think South Range struggled with staying even after the win over Poland.
We see that group of 4 teams right there, and I believe these are all D3 teams. Correct me if I'm wrong. From 3 to 6, South Range to Crestview, those are all D3 teams, correct?
Yep, all D3.
Which one of those teams do you think has the best matchup with the other 3? Like, if you're going to put these 4, because we know it's these 4 that are probably going to be making a great run at a district, at a regional even, too. Which one of these 4 teams do you think has the best edge if they have to go up against any of the other 3?
Ooh. In a tournament setting where it's just one game and that's it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's hard.
Because, I mean, we've seen Ysn, we've seen South Range, Champion, and Crestview, and I think they all have the makeup to make pretty deep runs in this tournament this year.
I'm going to say Ysn right now. Ysn right now. Ysn's pitching has been a little bit outside. They've had one game where their pitching has been, didn't show up. They gave up 16 runs. But for the most part, Ysn's pitching has been really good, with Paige Ogden and Mia Apollock both splitting innings. It's interesting that South Range and Ysn both have 2 pitchers that are kind of splitting their innings this year, when they're both coming off of years where they kind of rode one. Because Ysn rode Emily Holland, who was a great pitcher, and obviously South Range rode Brie Kohler, and now both of them are kind of having 2 good pitchers that are splitting time this year, with Stakowitz and Suzanne for South Range, and Apollock and Ogden for Ysn. So to see those 2 teams match up that are basically doing things kind of the same way, with a really good lineup and in splitting time between 2 pretty good pitchers, the matchup between those 2 gets a little bit even more interesting now. The only reason I'm keeping Champion out of that list is because they still have a young pitcher that's trying to figure things out in Meadows. And then obviously you can't count out Crestview, but obviously at the end of the day, their schedule isn't what Ysn and South Range is. So are they going to be tested enough to make that deep tournament run and compete with Ysn and South Range in the tournament?
I keep referring to Crestview as the wild card in this case, because I think they really are. They're going, I believe, right now with just one loss on the season, 2 Champion, and it was a close loss, 6-3. So
at the end of the day, in my opinion, Crestview, out of all of those players, Crestview has the best pitcher in Caden Sutton. But that doesn't mean everything.
No, it absolutely doesn't. And I think it's going to be interesting as we continue this conversation.
And Chris Ziegler with a good point. Columbiana's sitting in the shadows. They're sitting there like in that D3 district. They're there too. And they're a young team and they make some young mistakes. And we saw that in their Lakeview game. But they're also a very good, talented lineup. Julia Rapp is setting the world on fire in that lineup. Important to note, and I forgot this until I was having a discussion with Mr. Sigler this morning before the show went on the air. But in that loss to Lakeview, Julia Rapp was not there, so she was not in that lineup. And that was one of the days where Lakeview's pitching really controlled that Columbiana lineup. So that's an important note when you're talking about that particular loss for Columbiana to Lakeview, that remember that Julia Rapp wasn't there, that she was running track. Great multiple sport athlete, by the way. And when you're talking about, I'm missing a softball game because I have to go take care of business on the track, that's pretty impressive. But important to note, and Julia Rapp's a great hitter, and when she's in that lineup, it's super dangerous.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, Columbiana sitting in the shadows for that, sitting in the shadows for the power rankings. But yeah, let us know what you think. Always tune in, chime in the comment section below too. Did we get it right with this power ranking? What are some teams that you think need to be ranked differently? What are some teams you think need to make an appearance on this list? Who would you take off of it? Let us know as we close the book on our softball side of things, and we still go into week 4 on the baseball side of things now. And I mean, nothing changes at the top spot again on either side. I think Canfield has a lot of leeway. South Range right there, though. It's all Canfield all the time, baby. Right now, 1 and 2. They're dominating. But how about that jump Columbiana makes now into the top 3? I think finally getting all the respect they deserve. They are a top 3 team the way the pitching staff has been. Clippers getting the much-deserved recognition here, I think.
And the Clippers aren't just beating the EOAC, which is, I mean, they're beating the tough teams on their schedule that are non-conference. And they're pitching right now. It's second to Canfield right now. I mean, it's 1 and 2. Like, their pitching staff is putting on a show statistically. They've not allowed more than 2 runs. And I know Canfield has, but you look at Canfield's schedule and that kind of balances out. I would still give Canfield the edge on their pitching staff, but Columbiana's right there when you talk about pitching. They're going to be really hard to deal with.
Equivalent. They're the small school equivalent to what Canfield is right now, I would say. They're the D3 equivalent to what Canfield's doing in pitching right now. Absolutely. Because Columbiana's been playing up to a lot in their schedule, and they're going out there and they're playing the tough teams and shutting them down on the mound too. It's been absolutely impressive.
South Range is undefeated, and that's one of the reasons why they jumped to the 2
absolutely spot. You look at their pitching too. It's phenomenal. We had a chance to talk with Coach Hannock last week on Running Point too. That was a great chance to catch up with him and have the first real coach's corner with South Range too, and just a great chance to talk with him. You could catch that one too. It'll be posted on our socials as well. But look at JFK right there too, state champions, proving, I think, once they played some Division 4 teams that we thought would be knocking on the door for that state championship, they put them down pretty much with ease too. So JFK getting the respect. Fitch maintaining the 5th spot too, despite just 1 loss. I think last week to Green, still a very good school. A lot of things to be decided too. But how about that? I think the biggest drop we see, Boardman goes from number 2 all the way off of the list too.
And they had a tough, just like the softball team, they had a tough trip to Myrtle Beach where they just couldn't find traction against very quality opponents. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes when you lose, that many games in that week, then all of a sudden it's a weekly vote, right? So it's that's all you have to go off of that week. Sometimes it's going to drop you off. It almost did for Boardman. They ended up hanging on to the 9th spot in softball. They couldn't hang on to the baseball side. And I think it's because there are some teams in the bottom of this list that just, West Branch, you had to put them on. They're on an 11-game winning streak. Lakeview only lost 1-0 to South Range. There was really no place where Boardman could stay to bump someone off.
And you look at the teams that are making their debut now. I think there's 2 new teams, and you see West Branch and Mohawk, and having the chance to talk with Coach Molinix too. Last week they've been able to get a lot of games and have the Warriors because their facility allows it to. And we finally see West Branch making the appearance. Their pitching's been doing it, and Coach Molinix is doing it the right way. West Branch makes their appearance on here for the first time, so congratulations to the Warriors, and that's going to set up, interestingly enough, a game between what we're calling the game on the network between Salem and West Branch again. Another one where I think they're going to have to square off. I believe they have another matchup due up this season too, where
a lot on the line. West Branch has an 11-game winning streak right now.
They're looking really good right now.
Bo Alazas is starting to put it together when he gets on the mound. I think he's statistically their best pitcher. It could be wrong, but I think every time he starts, he definitely gives them a chance to win. And then they're finding some depth in the pitchers, in the pitcher's mound. I almost said in the circle. I'm doing the opposite thing that gets me upset.
Bo Alazas too in that game against Ursuline went 7 innings, didn't give up a run, only 5 hits and 4 strikeouts. Just another great pitching performance.
And he's young, and that's the thing. He's I
think he might be a sophomore.
Sophomore.
I think he might be. I could be wrong on that one though. We'll double check on that and correct us if we're wrong, please. But no, Bo Alazas too. He had a great game against Ursuline too, and that was a huge win for West Branch, knocking the Irish off this list. Got another team that's missing off this list too. Ursuline getting the bump off of it too. I think they were hanging on at 10 last week on the base.
They haven't really found that after losing that 2 weeks that they lost 2 in a row to Lakeview and Columbiana. They've won a couple games, but they haven't been able to find a groove back.
How about you said too, and we previewed it. The Keystone State gets some representation too at that 10 spot as Mohawk cracks
Following it up with a beatdown last night.
Yeah, I mean they were angry too. They wanted to showcase exactly why they deserve to be on this power ranking. So Mohawk.
Ty, here's the interesting thing, because South Range is undefeated. They're number 2, but right now, I mean, not right like this very second, but they got in a little bit of their game last night. They were down 2-0 to Hubbard. They were trailing 2-0, and it was delayed in the bottom of the second, and Hubbard had runners on second and third with 2 outs. So when they replay, I'm guessing they'll start it right back up. Hubbard will have a scoring opportunity to try to make that lead even bigger, already with a 2-0 lead on the Raiders.
Yeah, that'll be huge too. And both Raiders teams down by 2 to Hubbard. So that's going to be interesting to see how both the softball and baseball team try to bounce back.
Both on the road too. I mean, Hubbard's flexing some muscles at home.
And, no doubt. And honestly, that's another question too. We asked it with the softball side. We'll open it up to the comment section. I'll ask it again to you. Is there any team that has a path to that number 1 spot that doesn't require Canfield losing?
Well, I think Fitch absolutely does, and it would be because
I guess too. Aside from the obvious, though, these other teams on the outside, do you think too? I mean, we'll apply that same question too. Do you think South Range, as of right now, is the team most likely to dethrone Canfield?
I think eventually, if you stay undefeated and Canfield suffers, 1 or 2 more losses, how many losses can you let Canfield get away with at some point, right?
If you have a goose egg next to your loss column and compare it to 4, 5, 6.
We all get it. Like Canfield's losses are to really, really good teams, so we're not taking it away. But at some point, if they have 4 or 5 and they end up with 4 or 5, it's like, how many losses are you going to let them get away with when the team right below them is undefeated against a good schedule? I mean, like South Range isn't playing slumps here. I mean, South Range is playing really good teams. So if South Range goes undefeated and then Canfield, they get a couple more losses, then all of a sudden, I mean, you think you would have to put South Range at 1. And then I know your question was, doesn't bank on Canfield getting a loss. If Canfield doesn't lose the rest of the season and South Range doesn't lose the rest of the season, that would be an interesting debate on which team would end up with the 1 spot.
I will tell you, though, you mentioned Fitch, and I'll say Fitch right now, I think, has the clearest path to the 1 spot. They play 1, 2, and 3 this season.
Right. And they have yet to play them.
Yeah, they have yet to play them, and they have them all on the schedule coming up. I believe both South Range and Columbiana Friday. So let's talk about that, too. 2 5-inning games. Obviously, how much weight can you put in 5-inning games, I think. But
that's so rough. Those would be such great matchups, and we have to watch 5-inning games between.
Yeah, I believe right now that's what it is. But talking about it though, and if Fitch sweeps those, they go South Range, Columbiana, bang bang. That's both of their first losses on the season. How much weight gets put into that for Fitch jumping up the list then? And then of course you have to look.
You'd have to look very deep on how the game goes and take into account that it's 5 innings.
Yeah, I mean that's another good question. I mean that's why I talk about these 5-inning games, and I mean how much weight.
DK with a really good point. Like Fitch has a great chance to jump to 1, but they also have a chance to drop out of the power rankings really quick too if those games don't go their way. Right? So if they lose those games and they're sitting there with those losses on their schedule, then all of a sudden, what do you do, right? I think we lost Ty.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think you might have either you dropped me or something happened. But no, I think honestly with Fitch, that's a great point. They're sitting in that sweet spot where they control their own destiny. And absolutely those same losses to 1, 2, and 3, you could see them start dropping down the list as well. But they definitely have a lot of control over their destiny. But I think Canfield does too right now. As long as they keep winning, I don't think Canfield really has a whole lot of issues moving down this list. Honestly, maybe South Range jumps them. If both Canfield and South Range go undefeated, because I don't believe they play each other on the season. If Canfield and South Range go undefeated on the season, can you jump South Range over Canfield then? A no-loss South Range team over, 4 losses for Canfield?
Right.
I mean, it's an interesting question because, like,
And
keep
what
South Range
makes this
in that spot.
what makes this power rankings great, Ty, is everyone votes a little bit differently, right? Everyone gets their voice heard. Everyone has a different opinion on that. And I'm sure if that were to happen, there would be some people that take South Range and put them at number 1. And some people would say, hey, Canfield, they're too talented to take out of that 1 spot. So I'm sure it would go both ways.
Who are some of your personal bubble teams for this?
I think when I'm looking at baseball,
there's so much talent.
I think Champion's still on the bubble for baseball.
Based on Canfield's schedule, they'd be tough if they don't lose. Well, let me say this to you, DJ, then, and let me bring up this question too. Do you think 1 loss is enough? 1 more loss on Canfield, to anyone on their schedule, is enough for them to drop? I mean, obviously, some right things need to happen, but do you think 1 more loss on Canfield's schedule is enough to drop? Just trying to get it too, because I'm curious, because I ranked Canfield, full disclosure, number 1 again too. I still think I've seen them as the best team in the area too. So I've ranked them number 1, but I'm just curious on where some of the other thoughts are too. But what are some of the bubble teams that you were saying it?
I think Champion's still on the bubble.
Lakeview's
on this Power 5, and Newton Falls beat Lakeview this weekend. So I think Newton Falls has to kind of jump to the bubble. They have wins over Champion and Lakeview, which are 2 very good wins for the Tigers.
I think I put Louisville at 10 for my baseball power ranking too, and I think
Louisville's on the bubble, absolutely.
I think Louisville's been impressive to start. Here, Chris Sigler chiming in. Crestview sitting there quietly, has 2 matchups with Champion. That's going to be huge, I think, for Champion.
Boardman and Ursuline are still on the bubble. They didn't go away. It's not like they're all of a sudden in the bottom 20.
No, they're not gone by any means. And I think I still had Boardman on this power ranking, actually. Lower.
Let's talk about JFK real quick, because this is an interesting spot for JFK, because obviously they had a really tough non-conference schedule in the first half of their season with games against St. Thomas Aquinas. They had a scheduled game against Notre Dame Cathedral Latin that got rained out, not rescheduled yet. They had the game against Hoban. They played Garfield, won 3-0. They were supposed to play Mooney, didn't happen. They lost a close one to Ursuline. But now you look at the rest of their schedule, and it's pretty much their league. They have Southeast twice, Rootstown, Lake Center Christian twice. They still have another game with Ursuline, which will be interesting. And then they have another game scheduled with Cardinal Mooney. So you look at JFK, and they have Ursuline again, Mooney, and then a couple of league games in Southeast and Rootstown twice, Lake Center twice, and Canton Central twice. How is their schedule good enough to make a significant jump? I mean, like, with the rest of their schedule, not their schedule as a whole, but the rest of their schedule, like, how far can they move with the teams remaining on their schedule? With none of those teams that I said, none of those YSN teams are ranked right now.
It's like, it's the teams that the good teams you have to make statements in, and that's just the unfortunate part, is some teams have a tougher schedule than other teams, and that's the makeup of it, and that's what you have to look at. But you also, and some voters I think do put the teams into relative terms and understand the capabilities of each team. And if a team's a lower division team playing higher division teams too, it's the same thing as like a Canfield playing some of the state's best teams, as a Columbiana going out to play just a D1 team.
I think both polls, softball and baseball, have a team in that poll that their name carries as a little bit of weight, and they're going to be maybe a spot or 2 inflated all the time because of their name. And I think JFK is one of those. And I think on the softball side, I think it's Champion. Like, I think Champion's always going to be just that team that people say is Champion, right? So it's Champion. We'll forgive the loss to Brookfield, and we'll keep them at 5.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely you gotta work hard to get your name to carry that kind of weight.
Oh yeah,
and obviously it's fresh in everyone's mind. Warren JFK is the D4 state champion. We had the calls on the network.
Just Cam Hollabaugh off that team. I know it's hard to say just Cam Hollabaugh, but
Yeah, and I mean,
say just, but still, they have a lot of returners from that team.
Absolutely. And I mean, they still have phenomenal pitching on this team. And I mean, if you want a prime example on what JFK is to the rest of the competition level and like D4, take a look at what they did against Matthews. I mean, that's pretty much reflected on how JFK plays a lot of D4 teams in this region.
Once JFK gets into their own waters, it's like blood in the water, right? It's like blood in the water. They're the big shark in the D4 realm, and I think they're proving that with the second half of their schedule.
Here's DJ's opinion on Canfield, too. Canfield beat Hoban, defending state champs 8-0 without throwing their ace. As long as Canfield can keep getting on the field, they will be very hard to beat. Same story with Salem. The story, to me, is experience right now. The teams with the experience will have the upper hand down the stretch. And, I mean, that's what we've always said, too. And we saw it a lot in basketball season. And we talked all the time about the conferences being wide open, and a lot of them did look wide open. But we kept on saying, and you in particular, too, give you props where it's due, especially with that NE8. You kept on saying South Range Poland. Watch out, just because it's just where the chips have fallen the last few years. It's a team that's been there. They're always competing for it, and that's the two teams that we saw towards the top, too. And, I mean, it's kind of playing out the same in baseball side of things right now. The interesting part, I think, going into this season is the fact that we have all the weather delays that we have. So pitching, I think, is all taken up 2 notches and hitting's taken down 1 notch. So it's interesting to see once we start getting more consistent games and these bats start getting heated up, how everything kind of levels out. This is a great point, too, because I was looking at Mohawk's schedule to see if they played any other YSN teams, and that's a great point DJ makes there.
A lot of big games on the horizon for a lot of teams where these power rankings are going to shake up, assuming we get games in this week, which we look at Storm Tracker 21 again, and there's no rain left in the week's forecast. So I think today will be the only day where we have to be wary of field conditions from last night's water, but we should be good the rest of the week.
Yeah, and hopefully some of these teams can just get games in, and that's obviously the hope amongst the field, what we're seeing right now. And hopefully we can get some more scheduled games and get some records for these teams, and we can actually just start talking a little bit more baseball, softball results too, and make these power rankings a lot more clear for us as well.
And just to one more thing to DJ's point about experience, going through, like we talked about it yesterday, what teams are going to have the advantage going through all this weather, going through, getting games canceled all the time. No one's really experienced that, so like how much does the game experience doesn't account for games, but trying to keep your team focused through not playing for 3 days and then playing again and not playing for 3 days and then playing again, trying to stay sharp down the stretch. That's going to be experience too, not of the game experience, but the leadership skills experience. I think a lot of these teams have extremely high character leaders on their team. And that's going to shine really bright down the last couple of weeks of the season. I mean, we've had a chance to talk with a lot of these players in the last couple of years that are now seniors leading these teams, and the character is above reproach and the leadership is above reproach. And I think we're going to see a lot of those different leaders and the leadership of these seniors of the teams, especially the teams in the top 4 spots, are going to come shining through.
When you talk about the coaching staffs too, this is where it becomes really big, because you got to have the guys that set you up for success, that kind of teach you those leadership qualities too, and kind of are there to correct you as it's needed too. So some of the best coaches show up in times like this too, where you don't really experience these kind of things year in and year out, but it's the coaching that shines through and sets their team up for success too, and gives them the tools for success. And that's where you see a lot of these teams that are able to waver through the weather.
And experience. It goes to, like, Gary Niddle is a very experienced baseball coach. He's been at Canfield for a long time. Hannock has been at South Range for a really long time. Wolf has been at Columbiana for a really long time. Experience for the coaching, not just the players, trying to get through this unprecedented weather that we've seen stop and start this season. Don't lose sight of the experience on the coaching staffs. That's why I'm super impressed with Lakeview, with first-year head coach Cam Carson doing what they're doing.
And I mean, they're staying competitive throughout the entire, not only conference, they're just staying competitive in the non-conference games as well, which has been really impressive to see.
I believe that's the only first year head coach in this list is Carson at Lakeview.
Glancing over, I believe so. Because honestly, looking at this, yeah, I think everyone else has been pretty much seasoned there. And Coach Carson, a product of Michael Gennari over there at Niles too. So he's learned from some of the best too. And we know how much work, effort, and time that Coach Gennari has put in with the Red Dragons baseball program. Coach Carson coming from that, learning the tools that he needed from Coach Gennari, and he's applying them now against Coach Gennari too in the same conference inside that NE8. But
a couple years down the stretch, you could be talking about Coach Carson in that Coach of the Year category in that conversation. He's got a couple of years to kind of build that name and build that respect in that conversation. But he's off to a great start at Lakeview.
Would it be fair to say that the NE8's the best all-around conference baseball and softball that we have in our coverage network? Because for me, I'm putting them up there. The NE8's up there, obviously, but
between them and the AAC.
That's what I'm thinking too. The thing with the softball side of things, though, it's just like Fitch and Boardman seem like they're a little bit of a notch above, but the way Howland and Canfield have been playing, it's like they're right there, and it's that same core four in that AAC that appears a lot on the baseball side. But we're seeing so many NE8 teams, and there's so many NE8 teams that aren't even on this baseball list right now, and that I think can make noise in that NE8. Like Poland's always looming too as a solid baseball program that can beat you. Hubbard's always a solid baseball program.
Right now.
Yeah. So so this is going to be interesting how this shapes up. Who wins the NE8, I think, is going to have all kinds of confidence. And let's not forget about the EBC. We just have so much good baseball conferences, because you're looking at two EBC teams on here now in West Branch and Salem.
Yeah,
and that's just
you have a Marlington team that would be on this list, at least on the softball side for sure. And the baseball side, I'm pretty sure they would be on this list if they were a YSN team.
And I mean, you got to go through like the Canton South is a good baseball team too. Like Carrollton's not a pushover. Like these Alliance will get it done too. These are good teams all around. One of the best conferences, I say, just one of the best regions of baseball.
I think not we like as you and me, we as intensive of local media as a whole tend to forget about the EBC because a lot of those teams aren't quote unquote local. So, but they're really good teams, especially Canton South and Marlington outside of the YSN coverage map.
Yeah.
So that EBC can't be looked over.
And then you look at teams like Louisville, who are scheduling independently a lot of Federal League teams. And I mean, they're essentially playing the Federal League, the EBC, whatever league they want, the toughest games they want too. So got to give them credit where credit's due.
Does it make it hard? Like, we're going to talk about this after the break, after Coach Pace, because we had to take a break.
Yeah.
But I'll tease it. Louisville is in a tough spot because everyone has to kind of remake these conference games. I don't know. Are they losing games? Or are they trying to find teams that don't need to make up conference games right now? We'll have to keep an eye on what Louisville is doing with their schedule and talk about the difficulties of being an independent during this unprecedented weather that we're seeing in the Northeast Ohio Valley. So we'll talk about that and more. We have Garfield baseball coach Mike Pace as well after this break on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
When looking for home design inspiration, don't just be inspired, be Baird inspired. Whether new or remodeling, Baird Brothers has the latest trends like shiplap to refresh your home. Go from inspiration to installation with our wide selection of in-stock American hardwoods. From the rustic charm of antique oak to the warmth of traditional cherry, Baird Brothers has what you need to make your home inspiring. Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
For a great vehicle and a great experience, come to Boardman Mitsubishi today. As always, our full lineup of Mitsubishi models comes with a standard 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Boardman Mitsubishi, your hometown Mitsubishi dealer since 1999.
Coca's Pizza, always supporting our community and our local athletes. Stop in on game day or score big and have it delivered right to your door. Check out our daily specials at cocaspizza.com. That's Coca's Pizza, we serve it hot.
At Hubbard Chevrolet, Hubbard can help you get the financing you need regardless of your situation. I'm Tony Page, and I've helped thousands of customers in Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania buy a vehicle. Visit HubbardChevy.com to get pre-approved. Remember, folks, Hubbard can help.
not waiting to see what the world has in store for you. It's more about what you have in store for the world. All you need is the opportunity. All you need are the resources of a large university and the advantages of a personalized academic setting where you can experience new worlds in the arts and sciences, business, and education and make them your own. We are where you shape your future. We are Youngstown State University and proud.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin. I'm Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartel. We had a message from Coach Pace. He's running a little late, but he'll still hopefully be on between 1 and 2. He just can't make that 1 o'clock time, which is totally
he said he'll
okay.
be on in like 3 minutes. He just sent me too. So he'll be on momentarily. We're just like a 5-minute lag behind right now, but staying updated with us too. Just a few moments behind as Coach Pace. But nonetheless, as we look forward to Garfield baseball too, going to be interesting to get kind of a mid-season preview. This is, I think, our first time covering Garfield, I think, right in the baseball season.
Yep. First season with Garfield baseball.
So a little mid-season recaps, talk about a little bit of the highs and the lows of this baseball season to this point and kind of expectation to reality right now and what they're thinking.
There's Coach Pace.
Yeah,
he's in the
he popped
room
in right now. So without further ado, let's just bring the man in as well. As we'll pop Coach Pace in, get that off, and then get this on here. Coach, how we doing today?
Oh, all right. How you guys doing?
Not bad.
It's dry, so we're doing good.
Let's
very hot in the spring.
Let's start there too, and just talk to me about how this season has been as like a sort of mid-season recap. How you guys have been able to get games in despite dodging some rain too, and how that whole front has been too, and just give us a little mid-season recap on what the team's been expectation to reality so far.
Yeah, well, with the field situation, I mean, it is what it is with everybody in the same boat. But we were pretty lucky. We got 11 games in actually. One is still in extra innings and we're tied, so that game is still going on. So we got 11 games in. A lot of teams have not gotten that in. We've also got 5 or 6 JV games in. So we've actually been able to play a lot. Our field has held up pretty well with everything, and we got guys that work on it pretty hard, and assistant coaches and maintenance people, and so we've been working on it and trying to get it ready. And we've played in some, wet conditions, but almost all teams have, that came here and looked at it that it was wet, and they said, you know what, let's just give it a shot. Not all, but pretty much almost all. So we have a lot of teams that would suck it up and played in some wet conditions, and we got to play some games, so I'm happy for that.
Coach, I think one of the highlights of your season so far has been the pitching from Caden Spade. Talk about what you've seen from him on the mound, and I believe already a no-hitter, if I'm not mistaken, to his credit this year.
His first outing, he no-hit Liberty. He's a kid that is very talented as a freshman. Actually, his first game that he's ever pitched for me, his freshman year, was our second game of the year, was against his old school, Wyndham, and he threw a no-hitter in his first pitch ever, first game ever that he pitched for me. So, he's great on the mound when he's locked in and ready to go. There's always he's still a high school kid, so there's always those ups and downs with him. But when he's locked in and ready to go, he could get us a win any day, and that's what we look for in people. He's efficient enough, he throws strikes enough. And he's always been like that. So as long as he's locked in and ready to go, he gives us a very good chance to win. And he's been doing great. He's been striking out a lot of people. He's been dealing with some of the adversity well this year. He had a home run hit against them, and sometimes it really makes pitchers mad when that happens, especially because it doesn't happen very much in high school. And he went past it and just kept pitching and did really well the rest of that game. And he's been pretty good. As long as he's on his game and he's there mentally in and all that kind of stuff, then he could get us a win on any day.
We need to talk about this dynamic of him playing for or being with Wyndham though prior to, because if I know anything about like Garfield and Wyndham, that rivalry is the real deal too. So talk to me. Is there any jest that's given to him by other players or by you maybe for having those Wyndham ties before being here and being a G-man?
Oh, when he came over, there was some stuff, said and stuff like that. And when we played, he plays basketball. So when they played each other, some of his best friends still to this day are on Wyndham's team. So I don't know if it's animosity and all that kind of stuff, but it's just, I don't know. We do, there's always stones busting and things like that. But we don't really drive that home. I know his freshman year, he kind of maybe got it a little bit, but it's kind of gone out the window since then.
Talking about, stone busting and all that, heckling is kind of a baseball pastime, whether it be heckling with your team or heckling the other team and keeping it within the lines, of course. What's your team's personality like in the dugout? I mean, I know we kind of talked about it in the preseason preview, but what are some of the funnest things that you've seen from your guys this year?
Well, again, it's crazy. It just depends on the day, to be honest with you. And that's maybe the most frustrating thing this season, because there's days where we can have the most fun in the world and probably compete against anybody. And then there's days where we're not having fun and we're not doing very much competing. So, we've kind of hit an up and down road. And I don't know if it's the weather and the not practicing outside and all that kind of stuff. It's all a factor into it. But, there's a lot of kids, like I said in the preview, that like to have fun. But we want to win too. And that's when you're having the most fun, is when you're winning. But, here's just an example. Our bus gets stuck yesterday down in Crestview. We don't even get to play a game. We barely got off the bus. We had to get off the bus because our bus got stuck at the softball complex, and then it rained and it got canceled. But when it stops raining, our kids get off the bus and are playing catch and doing little drills and like things like that, and just having fun with each other, doing soft toss things and, hitting the ball. I don't know. There's days where, it's very, most of the time it's very great to be around these kids because they like to have fun and that kind of stuff. But, there's always those ups and downs and there isn't great days all the time, but they just really like to have fun, really like to be out there. And when we're on that, when we're on and we're locked in and we're having fun, then, there's no place I'd rather be.
Give me a mid-season preview from a coach's perspective of the conference that you guys play in now, joining this MVAC Gray side too. What has the experience been like from you as a coach?
It's a competitive league. I mean, we knew that going in, and PTC is a heck of a league too. So we went from one really tough league to another tough league, and we know that there's good teams in both. And the PTC, they're still doing good things, and the MVAC now, there's a lot of tough teams. There's good hitting teams. There's good pitching. We played champion, and we did not have our best week that week, and they showed us that you better be on your game when we play them, and we didn't do that. We were supposed to play Crestview yesterday. We did not get a chance to play them, but they're undefeated. We were in a tie, one game with LeBray in the 10th inning, 1-1. That was just a heck of a baseball game where people were just making plays. So there's a lot of good teams in this league. And, and every day it seems like, they're giving us our best. You know what I mean? Like, that's just every time we come there, it seems like you're the new kid on the block. We're going to give you your best, which is how it should be. And you should play your best. And, but it's very tough. And the PTC was tough, and coming right into the MVAC is tough as well.
Coach, every team is trying to dodge rain in Northeast Ohio. It's not just you. It's not like there's a cloud over Garfield. So the successful teams are going to be the ones that handle the ups and downs and the playing and not playing the best. What have you been doing to kind of keep this team sharp during the waiting out rain and the start and stops of games and things like that?
Gosh, I wish there was like some kind of method that would keep them focused for everything. But again, you're talking about kids anywhere from 14 to 18 years old. And we've, like I said yesterday, we got on a bus to drive an hour to Crestview. We don't even play a game, have to sit there for 2.5 hours. And before we drive back, and we barely got off the bus, and they were fun. They had they had their jukebox or whatever, and they were having a good time and singing songs and doing drills out in the rain. I mean, I don't know. I don't have, if somebody else has one, I would love to hear it. But, we try to do as much practicing as we can. I know it's hard in the gym. I mean, coaches don't like practicing in the gym, and players hate practicing in the gym. And, you do all these little T drills and all these little soft toss drills and all these little cage drills, and you try to get some live, pitching in the cage, and you try to do everything and make it as good as you can. But it just ultimately comes out to they just want to be outside, and they want to practice outside, and they want to play games and things like that. But the key to that is I don't know, just making sure as much as you can is you're focused on the minute that you're in. I mean, you're focused on the minute. Are you getting better at every station, at the hitting stations? Are you getting better when you're warming up, throwing the ball? Is your arm going to be ready? You know what I mean? And really just taking it minute by minute. I mean, session by session and day by day is really all you can do in this situation.
A quick follow-up, because we know that pitchers are so routine oriented and they want to have their starting routine and know they're going to start that day and be able to get in a routine. I'm sure it's been hard to get in routines this year. How have you seen your pitchers in particular handle this kind of adversity that this stop and start has put you in?
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, as a team-wise, we honestly haven't even had our full team yet, to be honest with you. So trying to get camaraderie there in that regard is kind of tough. Like, we've had kids miss for certain reasons and certain injuries and things like that. And honestly, we have not played a game with all of our guys yet. But with pitching too, I mean, it's tough because, I've heard more sore arms this year than any year I've ever coached. And I have, pitched less innings and less pitches than any year I have ever coached. Because of that, start again, stop again. Are we playing? Are we not? Here's a practice there. You know what I mean? And it's the pitchers, some of them have been consistently pretty good, but then we've had outings where it's been up and down and we couldn't throw a strike. So it's been a struggle, but trying to keep bullpens, when we practice, or whatever, and you try to go, okay, this is the day you would play. This is the day you would pitch. But the thing with high school, sometimes that guy's going to pitch the next day or Wednesday. You can't just skip his pitching outing. So, just getting them bullpens, 2 days before, 1 day before, and then afterwards and in between, and make sure you do recovery on your arm, things like that, because, everyone wants to pitch. And we have a couple seniors. We have 3 or 4 seniors or 3 seniors that pitch, 4 seniors that pitch, and they, and start on a mound and stuff like that. We have one that comes off the bench. So, we want the seniors want to pitch, and then we have some underclassmen too that want to get some time in. So it's really been a struggle, honestly, to try to juggle that and making sure this guy's arm's good, ready to go, and all that kind of stuff. So that's been a struggle for us as well this year.
At least getting enough pitchers, though, and having a lot of guys wanting to participate is a good problem to have. Coach, with this half of a season pretty much to digest for you guys now, and you guys have seen what you've had. You've rode the highs, you've rode the lows of the season. What are some goals you have now for the second half of the season just prior to tournament time?
Well, I just think that the league is so good that, there could be some upsets or surprises. I mean, Newton Falls beat Champion and we beat Newton Falls, but then, and Camel beat Brookfield and Brookfield went tough with Champion for a little bit until the 7th inning. And, all these teams are right there, it seems like, in this league. So I don't think like there's anyone that's, that ran away with it yet. So I think if we can do what we can and win as many league games as we can, and, the goal is to win out our league games. I mean, that is what it is. And it starts with an undefeated Crestview today. I mean, that's a big starting point, but it's got to be done. And that would be the goal, is to win out our conference games before tournament starts. We have that week in between when our conference is done, and then we have a week of non-conference games to get ready for the tournament. So I guess our big goal would be win out conference games, and it's going to be a tough challenge. But if we come focused every day and we throw a lot of strikes and field some ground balls, then we'll be all right. We also got to hit a little bit. I mean, our hitting's been struggling a little bit, but our goal is to win out the league games, and that's the first thing that we're going to focus on. But we got to win the day. So the number one goal is win the day, and that's cliche and all that kind of stuff. But we have to win the day before we can get to tomorrow. So that's our goal.
Follow-up question real quick for you, Coach. You talk about this undefeated Crestview team. No doubt it's going to be a great team. Without giving away too much of the book, what are going to be some of the keys to the victory tonight to start that winning streak against the conference?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're just tough. And, their coach, he gets interviewed and all that kind of stuff too. And he always says that we're not a powerhouse team and we small ball you to death and we want to be aggressive and all that kind of stuff. And it's really a lot of points that I try to make. So when you're looking at this Crestview team, you're looking at a team that really has had it together all year. They haven't had a down game yet. And we've lived ups and downs. So, but we really have a lot of the same messages, being aggressive as you can and stealing bases when you can and trying to get second as much as possible, and if you're not going to hit, we're not going to hit big bombs or anything like that. So to play small balls, make sure you move the guys over and things like that. So it's the little aspects of the game that they do really well. And their pitchers have been consistent, very consistent this year. So they've been doing a lot of good things, and it's going to be a tough challenge. So, they're pretty darn good. So we'll have our hands full.
Coach, before we let you go, I'm interested to know what's the biggest thing you've learned about yourself and your team during this season, and especially during all the rain that we've had in this April.
Oh, man. It's my 14th year coaching. It's my 8th year, I think, coaching as a head coach. This is probably the wettest it's been. And it's probably been, one of the most frustrating ones. And it's not just because of the record or anything like that. It's because of the spring and the wetness. And really, I guess it is, trying to keep the camaraderie together and is challenging. I think that's what I've learned. I mean, all these cancellations, having a lot of seniors, there's a lot of these guys that were focusing on playing football at the next level and going to college and all this kind of stuff, and trying to keep, I guess, that together, all of them together and stuff like that, while the weather has been so bad and we haven't been able to play as many games as we want. I think that's always most challenging. I mean, what have I learned, I guess, the most about this is every year it's just totally different. I mean, there's ups and downs in every year, but the ups and downs are every different. So just being able to, roll with the punches as often as you can, and things like that is probably the biggest thing that, you can take away. It's just, you never know what it's going to be. One year it might be really dry, but you might have a lot of other things going on with the team. And this year it could be just really wet and you're not playing games, and you really need to just to keep everyone focused on the goal. So really it's just those, learning year by year of what you can do to keep everyone focused is what I've learned, honestly.
Coach, thank you so much for the time today and taking time to give us kind of a mid-season preview. We thank you for your time. We wish you the best of luck the rest of the year, and we know that we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Mike Pays, the head coach of Garfield Baseball, coming to us and giving us a couple of gems. And Ty, there was one thing he said that I never even thought of during this whole spring, because I'm a softball guy, so some things about baseball slip my mind. The arms of these pitchers, when they can't get into a rhythm of pitching, and they have to shut down their arm and then get their arm back up. Like he said, he's thrown less innings and less pitches than he has in years, but he's getting more complaints of sore arms than he has as well. Is it a safety issue now when you stop and start these pitchers' arms?
Correct me if I'm wrong. And anybody that doesn't know, if you don't know, but correct me if I'm wrong. All the pitches thrown in a bullpen, as long as it's not in a sanctioned game, does not count towards a pitcher's pitch count. So a pitcher can throw a bullpen session and throw practice pitches, throw hundreds of those throughout a week without ever throwing a single pitch in a sanctioned game and still be allowed to throw 125 pitches in one game. So I can understand where it is. And I mean, it's that stop and go. And you're absolutely right, of these arms that you're going to start seeing in a lot of these pitchers. We hope for no injuries, but you understand why they're sore arms, and it becomes a issue for these coaches where they have to try to balance things out. But at least in Garfield's case right now, they have a lot of guys willing and wanting to pitch too. So it's a good problem to have, but you just have a lot of juggling to do. That's hard to do.
When we talk about baseball coaches this year, and one of the things that has to be applauded as they get through this season, and once again, something that probably should have been talked about a lot sooner, that just kind of didn't really went under the radar until Coach Pays said it. The ability to navigate and handle and properly manage pitchers and their arms during this stop and start nature of this April.
The pitching and
because it's not like softball. Like there's no pitch limit in softball. You can just go. It doesn't
not
matter
as much wear and tear on the arm. Right, that's the thing too.
Right. You really gotta focus a lot more on player safety when it comes to pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you see, I think you and I have talked about it too. If you watch a pitcher throwing a pitch in slow motion, it's nasty. It's nasty
Right.
watching how like the
These
arm
pictures
break.
that our great photographers take, especially Gary, like when he's got the freeze frame of someone's arm and it's like contorted, and it looks like the pitcher's taking his arm and putting it in one of those like
Going.
photographs in the movie where it's just
But no, I mean, you see that, and talk about the coaches. And I mean, Coach Page, you talk about this year being, he even mentioned too, in 14 years of coaching, one of the wettest it's been and the most like rain delays. He also had to deal with a COVID year a couple years ago with a season that didn't even happen. So 2 of the last 3 years having major shutdown stoppages too. For think about
things
the
that
kids
are out of
started
control.
freshman year,
Like,
either in their freshman year was either 2019 or 2020. That's 2 of their 3 years now, baseball years or softball years, where it's just essentially been a struggle to even get some games in there.
and both of the reasons are completely and totally out of your control. Like there is nothing you can do about it, and that's got to be the hardest. Like you cannot control the weather. You can't just make a magic thing. You're not playing, and you can't really do anything about it. That's got to be really hard to digest.
Yeah, no doubt it has to be hard to digest. And for these teams too, I mean, just trying to figure things out. And a lot of these coaches, give props to these coaches. They're operating in territory none of us have ever had to before, and no coaches before them really had to before.
And I guess that's why when I talked about it yesterday, and we talked about solutions and things to do, and what I didn't want to come up with dramatic solutions to react to this season, because like we said, and like Coach Pace said, and a lot of coaches have said, this is like the wettest spring we've had in a long time. It's unprecedented. Do we usually get rainouts? Yeah, we get rainouts. It's spring in Northeast Ohio. There's going to be days where it snows and days where it rains, but we've never had a spring like this where it's like we get a whole week multiple times of just like straight up rain, or we get like 3 days of snow in a row. Usually if snow comes, it's here, it's gone, it's a flurry, and the next day you're fine. This is just an unprecedented April, and although there are things that I think we can do, like this April has shown us, like there are things we can do to avoid losing games. Because of how unprecedented it is, I don't want to see schools and states kind of way over adjust and then set themselves up for like I said, moving softball and baseball to the fall, I think would be a way over adjust to this April.
I think if you moved it to the fall, the one issue is just first and foremost, football is king. So you're going to take away so much of any crowd that's going to come to those baseball games to go to football too.
Not just the crowd, also, the players are going to have to choose between baseball and football.
A lot of players that play baseball also play football, especially at the smaller schools. So that's going to be an issue you run into. And also the final issue, I've seen it snow on Halloween in Northeast Ohio. So like we've had like 4 inches of snow on Halloween. So what would you rather be dealing with, snow or rain? Is kind of like we
April's like, let's do both.
Yeah. April will throw you both from time to time.
But I think the difference is you're dealing with it in the beginning of the regular season and into the second half of the season. But then I would rather not have to deal with bad weather during the tournament, because tournaments when it really matters, right? Like tournaments when you win rings, win trophies.
And
I would really not want to deal with bad weather during the tournament.
We already talked about too. It's not feasible to try to move it into the summer and try to have like just high school teams represented in the summer, unless you did it as a travel team, and like high school teams were like travel teams, and you just represented your high school on travel teams in the summer.
It would look like that COVID summer where the high schools had a summer season per se.
Yeah.
Where you could pick and choose when you wanted to come to game, but it was kind of like it was like when the easiest thing I can compare it to is back when I was in high school. Soccer wasn't a team. It wasn't a school mandated. It wasn't a school supported sport yet for South Range. They had like a South Range rec league almost, where you wore South Range's colors and you wore the Raiders on your chest, but you weren't really a sport yet. You weren't like a OHSA. Well, I guess it was OHSA sanctioned back then, but it wasn't under the South Range list of sports that were offered. It was more of a club. I think that's what the summer league would kind of turn into. You would go if you want to, and if you have other things to do, like travel ball.
Is the problem too, is like you got travel ball, you got vacations that a lot of families take in the summer that you're going to be running into. So
Imagine your 16-year-old son or daughter be like, "We can't go on vacation. We got a state
Yeah.
championship to win. Let's go."
If poses
And that's easy to say. Hey, that player needs to make that sacrifice for a state championship. But then you're asking that player's brothers, that player's sisters, that player's parents to also sacrifice their vacation that they probably worked hard for the whole year.
You got to keep the family time too in the summer, and it's a hard. You're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and sometimes you just kind of have to shrug your shoulders and say it's unfortunate it's happening the way it is this season with the weather, but you deal with it and you take it as it is, and you just try to hopefully move on from it. Take a positive from it. It's good for the
I
players.
think some of the things that teams can look at. I think some of the things that teams can look at and schools can look at are, like I said, paying a little bit more attention and effort to field management. I know there are some fields that are just going to be bad because they're in bad spots or whatever, but you can do little things to make that field be able to handle a little bit more water. Like I said, in Poland, they're going to get they're building a new softball field, but the one they have right now at North Elementary School has this big hill in right field, right? So you would think that water would run down that hill and just build up at the bottom right in right field. There would be giant puddles. But Coach Surich, in his infinite wisdom, dug like a trench in front of the away dugout. So all the water kind of trickles into this trench. And they've played a lot of home games when teams aren't playing. There are games that I've went to Poland, they've played, and the only other softball team playing was Fitch. And they obviously have turf, and not every team can just go and get turf. But there are some things you can do to try to manage your field a little bit better. And it doesn't have to be to the extent of hiring someone that's a field crew. You know, they're just a little bit more attention to detail that you can do as a school to try to make your field a little bit more playable so they can play on those days where you get rain overnight or you get rain in the morning and it doesn't just destroy your field with a little bit of rain for 2 hours.
Yeah. And I mean, it is what it is. It's like I said, it's a rock and a hard place because not every
the hardest sport because like you don't have to manage the gym. Really, you don't have to manage basketball. The cancellations you get are because
football you could play in pretty much any weather too. Like,
football, as long as it's not lightning, like let's go. But baseball and softball, because it's dirt and you got to worry about safety and you can't run on wet dirt and there's so much stuff to do in the weather. It's like the field has to be playable, right? And it's a lot easier to play on a wet football field than it is to play on a wet baseball field or softball.
Absolutely. And I mean, we just hopefully the weather will ease up too.
You're gonna start seeing coaches out in the outfield with squeegees.
Like
We're playing.
Take any positive away for it. It's good. It's good for our plant life.
You bring the JV team out. They're all in the outfield squeegeeing.
Yeah, there you go.
You have the freshman team out. Like you don't cut anybody that year because you have like 10 roster spots that are only job is to keep that field up.
Oh man.
Like you're on the team, you're gonna get a letter, but your only job is to manage our field.
Yeah, I don't know how well that's gonna go over. I don't think that goes over too well. Oh man. I think it's about time we take our second break of the day and get into some of these games we got on the network happening tonight because a lot of games need to happen tonight.
Yeah, like we said, the only thing we're trying to dodge at this point, because there's no rain in the forecast, according to our friends over at Storm Tracker 21. But of course, because of the rain last night, you got to kind of worry about field conditions. But there are a lot of fields that in the area that are good at handling water and should be good to go. But we'll stay updated, see what's still greenlit, and see if any games are canceled, and go over the matchups for tonight and much more next on Running Point. And that is brought to you by, as always, Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
New things happen all day. Some are good, some not so good. In today's complicated world, while you're busy working, playing, and living life, we're busy helping you make sense of the day's news. And there's only one place where it comes together with clarity, context, and accountability. It's 21 News at 6 with me, Madison Tromler, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 6. It's what the day's news really means to you.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, shop with confidence knowing we're ready to go the extra mile for you. With the largest selection of used vehicles in the Valley, backed by the Greenwood Advantage Warranty. Every one of our vehicles has undergone our own 126-point inspection, so it passes the most important inspection, yours. No other dealership has the extra inventory, gives you extra for your trade, and goes the extra mile for you. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
Welcome back to Running Point on YSNLive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwick alongside Ty Bartell. Ty just got a text from our wonderful schedule guru, Quinn. He said right now, all these games are greenlit. So he does a great job staying on top of it for us and getting people where they need to go. And right now, he says that no one has called in that call to say games canceled yet. So that's a great news for a Tuesday night of baseball and softball.
Laura Wright commenting too. The AD does an awesome job at LeBray at getting the ball field ready. So props there too. I also wanted to shout out to our friends over at WFMJ. They have some sports scores that came in from last night too. We wanted to shout out boys lacrosse. Boardman beating Cardinal Mooney by a score of 6-2 last night, and then Canfield on girls lacrosse beating Uniontown Lake. And I believe there's an article we have for that. I think on ysnlive.com for that. So check that out.
Keeps on rolling in the girls lacrosse side of the realm of sports.
Also in the tennis scores, I think Howland beat Fitch 3-0, and then Ursuline beat CVCA 3-2 in that realm too. So just wanted to give you those scores on that end as well. And I also believe too, rugby going on with Cheney. I think Cheney has rugby games. I feel like they have their final rugby game going on this week too, and I'll try to get an update on that too.
That's football without pads.
Yeah, all kinds of other
right
sports that are going on around the area too, and rugby. It's a great sport, people. You gotta get out there and check it out too. It's a fun sport to watch too, for sure.
So before we get into the games, I want to kind of get on a serious note real quick and send some thoughts and good vibes to the Toronto baseball family. I know Toronto is not a YSN school yet, because obviously we hope to have every team in the region at a YSN school at some point, but they have definitely been on YSN before. They've played our YSN teams. They're a great program. They lost a member of an alumni of their program. Jesse Fulton passed away over the weekend. He was a member of the 2019 state championship team for Toronto. They've always treated YSN with respect when we get to call their games, and we wanted this kind of send our well wishes to that family and the Toronto baseball team as they deal with the loss of one of their former comrades and one of their former brothers. And we know baseball is a brotherhood. So even if he's graduated and you lose him, it's a tough go around.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously our thoughts are with the Toronto baseball program. And
remember, Toronto was the team that showed Lisbon such respect with all they went through in the football season. So Toronto, high respect to their whole athletics department. And that's why I wanted to just share our well wishes and our thoughts and prayers to their program as they suffer a loss.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our thoughts are with you, Toronto. And we hope you guys bounce back from this.
They are still ranked in the state for baseball, by the way, this year. So 2019 state champions, and they're still something to be had, and probably a team that one of our teams will have to deal with at some point in the tournament. Let's look at the games that are going to be played tonight, Tuesday, April 26th. I guess some cleaning up to do. YSU is playing at Niagara, but that game cannot be on YSN because there is no room in the press box for Richie. So YSU will be playing at Niagara at 3 o'clock today. But unfortunately, there will be no audio broadcast on YSN for that particular game.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be on other services as well. I think what ESPN3 is covering it. I want to say
Yes, it might be Plus or 3, but either
it's
way,
one
it'll
of-
be on their streaming. It'll be on their streaming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games on the network tonight. 3 baseball, 7 softball. It's going to be a fun night on ysnlive.com. We'll start with the baseball side of things, Ty. It is Boardman, Austintown Fitch, DJ Yoakley on the call. 5 o'clock first pitch from the Falcons' nest. They didn't get to play last night. They got rained out, so now everyone's going back to Fitch to try again tonight. Who you got in this one?
Oh man, DJ gonna be right across the way from me too on the baseball realm. I knew someone was gonna take this one. I had to be fair to the softball team. I took 2 softball conference games and 2 baseball ones. That's why I was able to do. I did Boardman for softball and I did Canfield for baseball. I was hoping someone did this one, and I'm glad it's the owner that's going to be the voice of it because this is going to be huge in the conference. Boardman has very senior led. They're going to be having a lot of big names on this team. You see guys like Griffin Widrig. That's just a huge name. Butto's a huge name too on this team. Like these are guys that bats 1 through 9 that can hurt you. I saw him against the Chardon Hilltoppers go down and take the lead right back too. They know how to take their punches too on offense and give them right back. But in this one, just because of how young the Falcons are, I know it poses a little bit of an advantage for the Boardman Spartans with how senior led they are. But for the simple fact that I think Jake Coral or Joe Roth are supposed to be on the mound tonight, I can't remember which one it is for Tuesday. I feel like it's Coral because I think Wednesday's Joe's starting day. But either way, I like those guys on the mound, and I'll take the pitching in this matchup. Give me the Falcons, especially since they're at home.
Okay, so you'll go with the Falcons, and Boardman's already got 1 Goliath down, right? They've already beaten Canfield. That's a check. I know they had a tough Myrtle Beach. They're probably really hungry to get that taste out of their mouth from Myrtle Beach last night. I'll go Boardman with this one.
All right, we're splitting Boardman Fitch right out the gate.
Hey, look, we have someone that's pretending to be me in the comments. We haven't seen you in a while.
Wacky version of you, Anthony Artie Harry Hartwig.
The shenanigans, man. Straight shenanigans.
Oh man! What's the next one? You
next
took
game on the docket. Niles at Struthers. This will be on scene 1 at 5 o'clock. Bob Zaney will be on the call.
Ooh, this is a good game too. It's your first pick, Ant. Who you got in this one?
I picked Niles yesterday. They didn't get to play. I'll just shuffle it over and say Niles again.
Yeah, I'll go Red Dragons on this one. I think they're on the outside of that power rankings, just on that outside.
All right, next we have Salem making the trip to Alliance, and as always, Derek Rhodes, the guy who I call the MacGyver of YSN announcers, will be on the call. I don't know if you feel like he does whatever it takes to get a game in. I saw, I think when he was at Carrollton, they didn't have a table for his camera, so he put it on the top of a trash can and then bungeed it to the fence so it could stand and get to where he needs to be. So he's MacGyvering his way throughout this whole season, and it is hard to keep Derek off the call. He'll be in Alliance tonight for Salem, taking the road trip to the Aviators. I guess you would call it the hangar, right?
Yeah, I guess you could call it the hangar, but all flights are going to be grounded. Give me the Quakers.
This is your captain speaking. And all flights are suspended. I'll take Salem as well to get the win. We'll stay in the EBC and go with West Branch. Putting that win streak to the test, they will travel to Canton South. And I will not vote against the West Branch Warriors, who are on a win streak. Give me the Warriors.
Yeah, let's go Warriors.
All right, and we go to Poland at Lakeview Baseball. And 5 o'clock first pitch for this one. The dog fight should have been round 2. It didn't really get in last night, so still round 1 between these two.
My pick, your pick.
It is your first pick.
This dog fight, I will side with the dogs that lay in Cortland. Give me Lakeview.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Cortland Bulldogs too. Give me Lakeview. Badger traveling to Cheney, 5:00 first pitch. Eric Gruber finally getting some games in.
I don't know. I haven't seen a whole lot of Badger.
I'm going to take Cheney, by the way.
I think I'm going to rock with the Cowboys as well. I haven't seen a whole lot of Badger this season, but we had Coach Gruber on. They've only been able to get a handful of games in. I think those guys are going to be excited to just be able to play. So let's see that they can get that excitement into a win.
All right, we have Brookfield at LeBray, 5:00 first pitch for this one, and it is your first pick for this one.
I'm gonna go with. I've seen Brookfield twice this year, and I did see them come back. Big comeback win against Pie Valley for their third victory of the season. That was huge. 10-9 in that one. But in this one, I don't know, something just gut telling me go with LeBray in this one, and I'm going to stick with my gut reaction, and I'm going with the Vikings.
Yeah, I'll stick with your gut. I'll go LeBray. We have Camel at Champion, 5:00 first pitch. I'm taking the Flashes.
Les Champions. Give me them.
Give me Crestview at Garfield. And like I said, Crestview undefeated. Garfield trying to get some traction. I'm sure Caden Spade will be on the mound for the G-Men. Who you got? It's at Garfield, too.
Give me the G-Men.
Really? To knock off the undefeated Rebels?
The unthinkable. It's been a wild season. Give me the G-Men.
Not doing it. Give me Crestview.
All right, that's fair. Let's do it.
Hubbard, who is winning in that first game against South Range. Well, actually, Quinn just updated and it is canceled. Hubbard at South Range baseball has been postponed. That is breaking news. Just went red on our games at a glance. Literally,
as Anthony was looking at it.
Like,
well,
I read it and it just went straight red. So we'll go from that one to Jefferson at Girard baseball.
Give me the Falcons.
Yeah, I'll take the Falcons too. I won't split with you that time. Liberty at Newton Falls baseball.
I can't. Well, it's your pick, but I can't.
It is my pick, and I'll take the Falls.
Yeah, I can't see me rocking against the Tigers with the wins they've been able to get. They get big wins. They prove they're a good baseball team.
Give me they're on the bubble. I think they're in that top 15, top 16, top 17. So they get a couple of wins, and some other teams kind of falter. They could find themselves in those power rankings. Lowville at Waterloo, 5:00 first pitch.
Got to rock with the Sweethearts. Give me the Vikings.
Vikings, yeah, I'll take Waterloo as well.
You were gonna go.
I almost said we'll take Lowville as well. Steubenville Central Catholic at Edison, 5:00 first pitch.
I'm gonna
banner Edison. Yeah. Give me Edison.
Yeah, I gotta rock with the Cats as well. Let me go with the Wildcats.
We want to share that the Latonia at Columbiana game has also been postponed on the baseball diamond, and that was not a field condition issue. It was listed as a scheduling conflict on Columbiana's Twitter, so that game not happening. Boardman at Austintown Fitch. We go to softball. Ty, you're going to be on the call. 5:00 first pitch. They got 1/2 inning in yesterday before the rain came, and it was a 1-2-3 inning for Cindy Watts. Fitch was going to be the home team in that game. So I'm guessing that they'll still be the home team in this one, and they'll just, 1/2 inning, they'll probably just restart it.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to care too much about that.
Who you got tonight in Boardman at Fitch?
I think, honestly, Boardman's going to have a great shot at Fitch. They have so many seniors, a lot of girls that have been there, done that, and I think that's going to play a huge advantage. I also think the fact that Boardman beat Fitch last year is going to play a huge advantage in Boardman's mentality going into this game against a very young Falcons team. But I can't go up against the untouchable Sydney Watts this season. 3 no-hitters in the season. She's been a freshman phenom for the Falcons. And whether it's baseball or softball, one thing I always find myself falling for is who's the home team and who's got the better pitcher or who's got the more dominating pitcher. And honestly, this is a great pitching matchup, whoever Boardman throws. But Sidney Watts is just on a different level. I got to go with Fitch in this matchup.
Last night, Madison Lester was going to get the start. I imagine that Coach Moots will stay the same thing.
Go with senior led. That's going to be
I was told by some Boardman people that Torrey Strines is a little bit of the better pitcher coming out of in relief. So I think they wanted to keep her in a relief kind of mentality because she relieves a lot in the travel ball scene.
And what the hell do we know when we're talking about like pitchers in games?
The pitchers for her travel team are Samantha Suzanne, Julie Stakowicz from South Range, and then she's a pitcher as well. So that's a pretty solid staff in that travel team that Torrey Strines plays for, the Honey Badgers. So I think Austin Down Fitch is going to win this game, but I also think it's going to be close. I'm going to take the chance. I'm going to take the chance that Boardman wins. I'm going to split with you. I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust that if Fitch does win, it will be close and I won't lose a lot of points.
All right.
It was a strategic split tie. Campbell at champion, 5 o'clock first pitch, and I'll take champion.
Oh, yeah. You got to go late champion in this one.
All right, we go. Canton Central Catholic at Cardinal Mooney, Field of Dreams, Field 1. Noah Ricks on the call for this one. Give me, actually, it's your first pick.
I don't know a whole lot about Canton Central Catholic. I know what I've seen with Mooney, but what I feel like does CCC have a solid softball program? Because I always hear their name pop up. I'll take the risk. I think I'm up. I'll go CCC with this one. See if you'll rock the banner.
I'll rock the banner. I'll believe Elena Scavina and Elena Francis to pull it together.
That's fair.
Give me Mooney. Hubbard at South Range, 5 o'clock first pitch. I will be on the call in the Raiders country. And they are losing 3-1 to Hubbard at Hubbard right now. This one will start clean at 0-0. Does it give them an advantage to already see? I'm sure Hubbard will just throw Haley Croyle again. Well, does that give the Raiders an advantage that they've already seen it? Now they get to start fresh. Give me South Range.
Ooh, South Range. At South Range. I gotta rock with the Raiders too. If it's out South Range, I gotta rock with the Raiders. Give me South Range.
All right, we have Niles at Struthers. It'll be Noah Doty on the call, and that is a 5 o'clock first pitch.
Give me Struthers.
I'll take Struthers as well. Also on the network tonight, St. Thomas Aquinas at Warren and JFK. It'll be Dom O'Brien with the call there. 5 o'clock first pitch.
I'm flying with the Eagles.
And this Camel Champion game is going to be two. We should have picked both, but it's going to be 2 5-inning games. And I will pick Champion for both. They're both going to be on the network. And it will be Brian O'Ridge on the call for both of them.
B.O.
What?
B.O. No. It's B.O. B.O. Ridge. B.O. Or Boat.
I thought you were saying B.O. I was like, wait.
It's Boat.
No. Brookfield at LeBray, 5 o'clock first pitch.
Give me Brookfield.
Yeah, give me the Warriors. I think they've opened up some eyes for sure. Canton South making the trip to Salem, 5 o'clock first pitch. Salem, they're kind of on a roll. Riley Troy's been finding a groove.
They
ever
just
since
beat
they came back from
1-0. And they beat another team, 6-1 just recently.
They beat Girard and Struthers over the weekend in kind of a Saturday doubleheader.
Why not? I'll rock with the banner. Give me the Quakes.
Yeah, give me the Quakes, man. Give me Riley Troy starting to really put things together in the circle, and Channing Toy, starting to really hit well in the top of that lineup. So Crestview at Garfield, 5 o'clock first pitch.
Give me the View.
Yeah, I'll take the Rebels too. I'm not going to rock against Keaton Sutton the way she's pitching right now. Girard at Jefferson. My first pick, and I will take Girard.
I'll take Girard as well.
I was about to say, don't you take that first pick from me. Jackson Milton at Middle Ridge. This will be a 5-inning doubleheader between the Blue Jays and the Rams. 2 games. In game 1, it is your first pick, and you'll take it. No, I'll take game 2 for the first pick.
Give me the Rams in game 1.
Give me the Rams in game 1. Game 2, I'll take the Blue Jays.
I'll take the Blue Jays as well.
All right, we're not splitting it all. I
I
like
wanted
it.
to split that series. I just didn't know where I wanted to put it because I think both of
It's
this
a
is a
coin
great
flip.
game,
When you're picking double headers, it's a coin flip.
especially conference games inside that Scarlet side.
Latonia traveling to Lisbon, 5:00 first pitch. I will take the Blue Devils.
Yeah, let me get
Should've been
Devil.
your first pick. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I'll take the Devils though.
You can have this one, and it is Liberty at Newton Falls. It'll be a doubleheader, 2 5-inning games.
I'll take the Falls. I'll take the Falls for both. Why not?
Yeah, I'll take the Falls for the sweep of Liberty. Next, we have Marlington traveling to Louisville. Oh, that's a good one.
That is going to be a good one.
My first pick, 5:00 first pitch. I will take the Banner. Give me the Leopards.
Spot me, Leopards.
And Marlington with the win over West Branch last week, 4-3 in 10 innings. So that one was a marathon. We'll see what Louisville can do with them tonight. Poland traveling to Lakeview, 5:00 first pitch. They couldn't get the game in yesterday, so now it's another dogfight with the Bulldogs from Cortland, the Bulldogs from Poland, and it is your first pick.
Give me the View, Lakeview.
Really?
Yep. You weren't expecting me to be so confident and quick with that.
No, I wasn't. I was like, oh man, he's riding with them.
I'm riding.
Poland. Give me
right.
Poland. Split me.
You didn't like how confident I was in that.
Not that I didn't like it. I just didn't. It threw me off guard. And that will do it for our picks because Lowville at Western Reserve, Lowville at Waterloo, softball has been postponed. So that is the last game on the slate for softball. We've gone through baseball. Badger at Cheney just got postponed, so that one's not happening. Just to keep you guys fully updated, a reminder that YSU will be playing at Niagara, but there will not be a broadcast with Richie because there is no room in Niagara's press box. That starts at 3:00, but you can still watch it on the ESPN app. I don't know if it's plus or 3. If it's plus, you have to have obviously the subscription to watch it. If it's 3, it'll be free.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we shared it too on our socials too, and I think it said 3. So, but double check too. We shared it on our socials, and it's on YSU socials as well too. So,
Yep.
Of course. Until Wednesday's edition of Running Point, we should have Scotty and Brian Tolnar on. So it should be fun for tomorrow's edition.
I had to hog him last week while I was on vacation.
Yeah, I did. So we get back to being a full crew again with them tomorrow. So don't miss the golf guru Brian Tolnar joining us, and as well as Scotty Mincher too.
I told everyone at Fitch last night, was like, Anthony, you're finally here. And I told everyone that you've been hogging them. So
I make sure no one takes that.
I've been holding the Falcons.
Hug them and hold them close. We always talk about my sweethearts with Waterloo. That's the first true love, though. Got to hug them and hold them close. I don't let anyone take the keys to the Lambo often.
It's time to go. As you said, we're taking a 22-hour break. And we will be back with tomorrow's episode of Running Point with a lot of results to talk about, some shakeups to that list that we brought up today. And we'll see how the results fall on tonight's games. 10 games on the network tonight, 7 softball games, 3 baseball. And make sure to tune into all of them at ysnlive.com/live. I'm Anthony Hartwig. That's Ty Bartell.